Welcome to the Whiskey Vault. I'm Daniel Whittington, Chancellor of Wizard Academy and Whiskey Marketing School. Let's talk about one of the worst things that ever happened in wine. And it was one of the best things that ever happened for whiskey. The great French wine blight and the phylloxera beetle. So what happens is in the late 1800s, 1860s, although this problem goes all the way for a couple of decades. It sounds like it all happens at once, but if you read your history, it happens like a slow motion catastrophe over almost 2 decades. While the French government sort of does nothing about it at first, and then by the time they really start freaking out, it's too late. But what happens is, in the early days of trade from North America, it was very common for people to bring back entire plants and animals and species. This was all over, where people would just get an animal in the Sahara and then bring it back or bring a plant from Africa, and then next thing you know, it's cool. You got these there's a lot of growth and history of knowledge in the world at that time because of things like that. But also you introduce things like pests or rats to places that had never had them before. Or animals that eat fruit to an area known for citrus because it shows up on a boat coming from the wrong country and they offload a bunch of cargo, and next thing you know, you wipe out the citrus industry on a small island. And so what happens was you have this phylloxera, which is an aphid-like insect, and is native to North America. And it gets carried across the Atlantic Ocean in the late 1800s. To Europe. It's first identified in Europe in 1863, and it's an insect that feeds on the plant and lays its eggs in the roots of grapevines. And then they feed, and they just damage it, weakens the vine, eventually the plant just dies. So farmers start to notice this as a problem. Oh, there's this new bug we've never seen. All of our vines are wilting, dying, and they're not built to survive this. And you're talking about, it's a Eurasian grapevine, specific to Europe, and they walked right into a feeding frenzy. These aphids just like, heck yeah, we'll take it all. And they did. It went through France over several years, and then it spread into other countries, and within 2 decades, it had destroyed 2/3 of Europe's vineyards. And so everyone quit drinking because there was no wine. And they're like, you know what, no wine? Not even gonna drink. Nope, that's not at all what happened. Let's drink some Springbank, because I realized I've not done the Springbank 10, and I love Springbank, and so we're gonna do, it's really hard to get this one these days, so I'm sorry if you are unable to get your hands on it. But the reason is, because the nerds found it. I was one of them, sorry. Springbank is one of those, we've been talking about music a lot lately. I talked about Coldplay and Eagle Rare, but there are some bands that get cool and then they just maintain their cool status forever. And nothing they can do really f***s it up. It's like Radiohead, just when you thought it was over and they had completely destroyed their careers with this alteration, it turns out it was cool and changed music, and they just never lost their cool status. Like, I remember when Kid A came out, and there was a meltdown when they had gone from OK Computer to Kid A, and it was like, what is this? This is not Radiohead. People were pissed, but certain people really loved it. And now it's considered one of the great Radiohead albums ever recorded. I would argue OK Computer was the most groundbreaking, formative album. It changed the music industry as we know it. I would also argue that Kid A is still one of the great Radiohead albums that you've ever heard in your entire life. In my band at the time, we called it a palate cleansing album, which would be when we're on tour and you're driving 30 hours and you're just cycling through random music. Everyone in the band is putting it into the CD player at the time. And when you just needed a breather, we would just put in Kid A and listen to it in its entirety, and it just sort of like reset you. It's beautiful. My bass player and his wife got married. Their bridesmaids walked down to a song from Kid A. It was a boom, 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 boom. I can't remember the name of that one. Lasting stuff. Anyway, women and children, rock. They never f***ed it up. Springbank is a distillery that's like that. Springbank has always just been hardcore. This is how we do it, old school. They had their own malting floors. It's not exclusively their own malt, but they're using worm tubs. They're using old school distillation and slow techniques. Their labels are not overly fancy. They didn't go down the cool, trendy rebrand of everything route. They have a school that you can sign up for. You can go there for 2 weeks and like train in a distillery. They make 3 different spirits in Campbelltown. It's a Campbelltown whiskey, one of the 5th regions of Scottish whiskey. They make Hazelburn, they're unpeated, and Longrow, they're super peated, and Springbank, 2.5 times distilled. How do you distill 2.5 times, you say? Well, some of the spirit goes back in for a 3rd distillation, and some is only 2 distillation, and you mix those together, you end up with 2.5 times distilled. It is not for everybody. But they just got super popular. They got to where you couldn't get any of their product, and they could have resorted to lower age statements, no age statements, really screwing it up, but instead they just stayed cool. And what that means is it's really hard to get them now, but they're still cool. Now, it is not for everybody. It is young. 10-year-old smells young. It doesn't smell 10, it smells younger. It's briny. It's Band-Aidy, but it's also nice, big fruit, soft sweetness. It's a beefy warrior with a tender heart of gold, right? It's just this contrast of big, dynamic flavors rounded with like this really beautiful, soft, delicate fruit, great fermentation notes. They're very simple as a brand labeling and as a design, but the whiskey is just true to everything that a nerd loves about whiskey when you love nerdy Scotch. And so it's just never fallen out of favor. Beautiful, sweet wooden washbacks, in-house malting, worm tub cooling, direct fire stills. Checking all the nerd boxes one by one, just like Radiohead. So you taste it and you think, oh, it's young, sweet, and then there's this roll through of heavy, rubbery, phenolic, Band-Aidy notes that are less fire and more medicinal supplies. And it sounds like you shouldn't love that, but it's so good. Now, my favorite is the 12-year-old cask strength. I like it more than anything I've ever had that they've ever made, and it's really hard to get that one now. It used to be, I could get it all the time down the road because no one knew what it was, and so it was in every one of my tastings for probably 6 years. Anytime I poured a Campbelltown, I poured Springbank cask strength. Now, I don't even know how to find it. But I can get 10, so we've got that in the vault. All right, so the wine industry collapsed, and everyone stopped drinking. Now, what actually happened is whiskey, which was growing at the time, this is late 1800s, we get the early days of the blending companies and the Walkers and Buchanans, and all these guys are starting to scale, and all of a sudden, there's a new market for whiskey because there's all of Europe needs something to drink, and you can't get any wine. So what happens? What fills that gap? Well, actually, it's mostly Scottish whiskey in the big blending companies. But Ireland takes its first steps forward bigger in that same era. And just whiskey as a category sort of rolls out. And that's when we get whiskey's first real foothold as a non-localized drink and a world drink now. Right? Scottish and Irish specifically. In America, they're all still doing bourbon and rye at that time. What saved the wine industry? Because notice we have a French and Italian and European wine industry. So what happened? Did they kill every single phylloxera barrel? No, they didn't. You know what's really super nerdy and cool is Texas helped save the European wine industry. Specifically Texas, as in specifically T.V. Munson, a native of Denison, Texas, up on the Oklahoma border, growing Texas vines and grapevines. In American, it's a whole different grapevine strain. And where are phylloxera beetles from? North America. All of these American vines had a natural resistance to the beetle. And there was something to do with it was able to like quick heal and close up the damage in parts of its trunk and grow over, and so it never damaged enough that it couldn't stay alive. So he started grafting Texas grapevine rootstock and European vine into one vine. Maybe not single-handedly saved the wine industry, but pretty close. As a matter of fact, to this day, there are very few vineyards across Europe that haven't been impacted by American Texas root-based history. And it was so powerful that Denison, this tiny little town in North Texas, like 20 minutes from Oklahoma, is a sister city to Cognac region cities. That's so cool. Now, they referred to it as the Iron Root. Ever heard that before? Yep, that's where Iron Root Distillery, our friends the Licorice Brothers, got the name for their distillery because they're in Denison, Texas. And they named their distillery Iron Root Republic. And they took a lot of their training and their French brandy and wine techniques, they apply it to whiskey. And that's that whole thing. So T.V. Munson is one of their the heroes of Iron Root Republic Distillery. A Texan, took a Texan to come in and save the French wine industry. Anyway, I hope you find that as interesting as I do. Cheers to you. I'm really glad you're here. I don't know, if you're looking for the Kid A of single malt scotch, it's going to be a Springbank bottle. Maybe OK Computer? Nah, either way, if you want to find out more bad whiskey comparisons, like and subscribe.